today we're going to talk a little bit about something that's asked a lot on the road, in our personal lives, and that's internet. And the answer is pretty complex. We use a few different options. So what we're going to do is break down each of the different things that we use. We're going to give you the good, the bad, the ugly.
Yep, internet's a big deal to us because we do work full-time jobs on the road, so constant connectivity is a must. We actually have three things that we rely on that we'll touch on real briefly here and kind of give you an overall view of what we do out here on the road to stay connected. If you've been following our videos for a while, we hope you guys are finding our content helpful and maybe even a little bit humorous. If you're new to the channel, welcome aboard. We do put out new videos every Tuesday at 6, and we try to cover a whole range of topics about full-time RV living. We've been doing this for about 5 months now, and we're really enjoying it, and we really love sharing our journey with you guys. So be sure to hit the like button and subscribe and check back for new videos every week.
Like and subscribe.
And if you're new, be sure to go back and check out our previous videos so you can kind of see what we've done in our journey so far up to this point.
All the weird, awkward stuff at the beginning.
So the first thing I'll jump into right off the bat, it's probably the one we get the most questions on and the one that's most interesting to everybody because it's kind of new technology, and that's Starlink. So this is our Starlink router. The setup on this is pretty easy. You literally set the dish up in the yard and you plug in your data cable and your power cable to your router. You get a little white light on the bottom and you know that it's on and working. If you run into a situation where the unit freezes, Starlink will tell you just to unplug the power cable and put it back in 3 times as fast as you can. What we like to do with ours is run our data cable up through the bottom of our basement. We actually have a port for water hoses, extension cords, etc., and we just run our data cable right up through there. When we originally got it, before I realized there was a better way to do it, we used to actually run the data cable up through a slide seal. That works, but it's a little more of a headache when you're setting up and tearing down as much as we are. So this is the Starlink dish. I kind of tell everybody it looks like 2 iPads standing on top of each other, nice and small. It comes with the stand that detaches from it, so when you get ready to go, you put it in stow mode and it turns it up flat to where it's a little bit easier to store. I mentioned the data cable earlier. They do give you a nice 100-foot data cable, so we haven't had any problems getting far enough away from our camper for a good setup. They do sell a variety of poles and mounts online that you can try. We actually have one we're going to work on attaching to our ladder later this year, so we'll talk about that later on. Biggest thing with Starlink, you need a clear view of the sky. If you have a lot of tree coverage, or in the case of last night, we had some really severe thunderstorms and we actually lost our signal for a little while. Think of it like your Dish Network or your DirecTV. If the weather's really nasty, you're probably going to have some signal issues. And if you have no view of the sky because you're covered in trees, you're going to have some signal issues. The Starlink app actually has a lot of good tools with it. Not only can you stow your Starlink here, you also have a visibility tool where you would actually click and check for obstructions. And it's as simple as raising your phone up to the sky and walking around until all the dots are gone. And it'll actually tell you if you're in a good spot or maybe you need to move it. Another thing to note on Starlink is it is power sensitive. While it doesn't draw a lot of power, if you're in a situation where you don't have good consistent power, maybe some power blips, it will reset it. For instance, we were doing some boondocking this summer and we were doing a lot of running off our generator, and a common issue we had is when our ACs would kick on and really put a draw on the generator, the Starlink would blip out for a second and we would have to reset. All told, it was probably about a 2-minute loss of signal, but it's enough that if you're trying to work during the day or maybe upload a video to YouTube, it could disrupt things, so be cognizant of that. The next thing I want to talk about is our T-Mobile MiFi hotspot. This runs off the T-Mobile nationwide network, so anywhere that you would have 5G or 4G LTE with your wireless phone, you're going to have internet with this box. It's not tied to a phone number, it's just an internet source. This is great, and what I'll tell you is when it's on, it's on. It's very fast, it boots up very quick, and it'll give you a Wi-Fi signal throughout your RV or your home for that matter. And we've ran, a couple of phones and iPads, streaming TV, working off of it. So it'll definitely handle anything 2 people can throw at it if you have signal. The nice thing about this is it does have a rechargeable battery, so we can put it in the truck if we need to do something while we're going down the highway from the passenger seat, of course. We could take it out on the boat. We can use it pretty much anywhere. The battery life is good, not great. It's probably going to get you about a half a day of work, but it's great in power outages. You don't have the sensitivity to generators and surges and things like that like we do with our Starlink, and it works really well in bad weather. And when I say it's on, we ran into some situations where we were staying in more populated areas. For instance, when we were in Rapid City, South Dakota, we had 5G service, but because of all the other RVers around us and all the tourism in the area, the network gets congested. So it'll appear as if you have great service, but your speeds will actually be very slow or non-existent. So that's why we look at this as a good backup option to our Starlink. Last but not least is our final backup solution, and that's the good old iPhone. We also have it on our iPad. We use the AT&T cell service with our phones, and we have for years. We found it to be the most reliable cell service that we've had. It's a little bit pricier than some of the competitors, but you pay for quality. I know everybody's going to have different experiences based on where you travel. This is just our experience. We have the ability to turn on our personal hotspot with our iPhones, and with that we can run multiple devices. We were actually working on it earlier today when we had some severe weather roll through that messed with our Starlink. It works great. The biggest drawback about the AT&T cell phone program that we have anyway is that we do have a data cap. Technically we're unlimited, but once we use, I think it's 15 gigs of data, we get throttled. And when AT&T throttles you, they throttle you pretty hard. So we try to use this at the very last minute when Starlink's not an option, and after we burn through our 100 gigs with T-Mobile. It doesn't happen very often, but the option is there. It's as simple as going into your phone settings and going to your iPhone settings, personal hotspot, and flipping a switch. Nice and easy. You can set up a Wi-Fi hotspot anywhere, and because it's on an iPhone or with an iPad with a rechargeable battery, you're not limited to power surges, and you still have internet in the event of an outage, assuming the towers near you are still operating just fine. So now that we went through the 3 internet options that we use, which are Starlink, the T-Mobile MiFi hotspot, and the AT&T mobile hotspots through our phones and iPads, let's go inside and do a quick real-world speed test, and we'll walk through that with you, just so you can kind of see what the speeds are doing today. With Starlink, I've seen speeds as high as 200 megabytes per second on the download, and I've seen them as low as 8 or 10. Really depends on where you're at, what the weather's doing, and a lot of other variables. So we'll just do a real-world speed test today and see what's what. Okay guys, let's jump right into the speed test app. We'll check out Starlink first, and I'm just using the Ookla speed test app for the iPad. We'll see what kind of speeds we get today out of our Starlink. Pretty good day today. Looks like we're going to come up with 106 megabytes per second on the download speed. That's pretty consistent with what I see. I've seen as high as 200 and I've seen as low as 10 or 15, but it's always pretty consistent once you get it set up. So then we'll jump into our T-Mobile, and as you can see, it's just blazing fast. This is a really good setup. Like I said, when it's on, it's on. You're going to see it top out at about 400 megabytes per second. I will say that's not consistent nationwide. That's just what I happen to get today. Upload speeds are also pretty impressive. They're usually going to be somewhere between 6 and 11 based on what I've seen so far. But still a very good setup for a very reasonable cost, and we'll get into that in just a few seconds. Looking at our AT&T, still throws out respectable speeds, a little bit less than T-Mobile today, which is interesting because a lot of times they'll run on the same network. But still at 30 megabytes per second download speed, that's plenty for us to get our work done during the day and stream some video at night. Upload speeds aren't so great, but we really don't use our AT&T hotspot to upload any kind of video or anything like that, so it works just fine for what we use it for. Alright guys, now that we've went through the 3 internet options that we use to stay connected on the road, we wanted to take a minute to go through the pros and cons of each of them, just kind of rapid fire and tell you our final thoughts for what we use. So Starlink. It's fast and consistent, it's really easy to set up, you can use it anywhere with a clear view of the sky, and it has unlimited data. The biggest con to Starlink, aside from trees and weather, is the expensive upfront cost. You're going to spend about $600 on the equipment to get going, and that's before you add on any mounts or anything like that. So Expensive upfront cost, kind of expensive on the monthly too, at about $135 a month, but it is unlimited. There's a little more of an involved setup where it comes to routing the power cable into your rig, so while it's easy to set up, running the cable is a little more involved and it does require a consistent power source, so probably not generator friendly if you do that a lot. The T-Mobile MiFi hotspot, it has blazing fast speeds as you guys saw in the speed test earlier. It's really easy to set up. The pricing's reasonable. The box is about $200 and the service is $50 a month for 100 gigs of data. It does have that rechargeable battery that's great in power outages. The cons is it does have a little more of a limited coverage area for us, and it's a lot more prone to network congestion versus AT&T in our opinion. And finally, our AT&T iPhone personal hotspot. It gives us excellent coverage everywhere we go. It's always in our pocket, and it's really easy to add on to your current data plan. The biggest con is the data cap and the throttling here. AT&T monthly cell phone service is kind of pricey, and we all know iPhones aren't cheap. But overall, this is our day-to-day lifeline, and it's our last choice for a bailout when it comes to internet.
Hey guys, hopefully you found this video informative. I'm sure there's something that we missed. So if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. Any suggestions, let us know, because again, we're still learning.
Yep, be sure to join us on the journey next Tuesday at 6 o'clock for our next video. Be sure to like and subscribe, and be sure to share them with your friends if you find them informative or helpful. We'll see you next week.